Hey, Austin Smith here, and welcome to Knowledge Now. During World War II in May 1940, Nazi Germany commenced its invasion of France. Aircraft, tanks, cannons, grenades, and rifles were among the many weapons employed in the fighting. One British officer, Jack Churchill, decided to carry quite a different arsenal onto the modern battlefield, however, namely a longbow and a sword. Oh, and he also played the bagpipes while he led his troops into battle.
Jack Churchill was born to an old Oxfordshire family in 1906 as John Malcolm Thorpe Fleming Churchill. Yes, he had 5 names, but most people just called him Jack. And just to clarify, he had no relation to the more famous Winston Churchill. Jack Churchill graduated from the Royal Military College at Sandhurst in 1926 and then served in the British Army with the Manchester Regiment throughout his 20s. During this time, he saw service in the then British colony of Burma in Southeast Asia. Today, Burma is the independent nation of Myanmar.
Churchill saw his first fighting there during the Burmese rebellion against British colonial rule. He started studying the bagpipes under a Scottish major during his downtime, and he also picked up an interest in archery.
When Churchill visited India for a military course, he traveled about 1,500 miles on his motorcycle across the country to return to service. In 1936, Churchill resigned from the army and began work as a newspaper editor. He continued to pursue his interests in archery and bagpipes and also became adept at handling a broadsword. Churchill gained minor roles in movies as an actor, utilizing his archery skills, and also worked as a part-time model. In 1939, Churchill represented the UK at the World Archery Championships in Oslo.
When Britain entered the Second World War against Nazi Germany later that year, Churchill immediately re-enlisted with his old unit as an officer, taking his broadsword and his longbow along with him into service.
Churchill and his unit joined other British forces in defending France in May 1940 against the German invasion. When Churchill and his men came across a Nazi patrol one day, he ordered an ambush. Churchill loosed a barbed arrow from his longbow as a signal to commence the attack, cutting down the enemy German sergeant in medieval fashion as the rest of the British soldiers opened fire with their guns. Churchill gained the distinction that day as being the only British soldier known to have felled an enemy with a longbow during World War II. He soon gained the nicknames Mad Jack and Fighting Jack Churchill, as he proved himself on the battlefield with his unusual weapons of choice. As the British were pushed to Dunkirk, Churchill rendezvoused with the rest of his soldiers after riding his motorcycle to the beach, his bow and arrows hanging from the frame, and a slain German officer's cap on the headlight. He had incurred a minor injury after being struck by a German machine gun, but casually dismissed the wound. After the fighting at Dunkirk, Churchill returned to England and trained in Scotland for a new commando unit being formed. There he met and married his wife, with whom he would later have 2 children.
On December 27, 1941, Churchill saw his first action as a commando, leading a regiment against a German garrison on the coast of Nazi-occupied Norway.
As the ramp fell from the landing craft, Churchill leapt into the battle, with his men following close behind. He played his bagpipes as he led the charge before throwing a grenade into enemy forces. In this photograph of a training exercise prior to the actual raid, British soldiers are seen exiting a landing craft, guns in hand, while their commanding officer, Churchill, leads the way, wielding his sword. Later in the war, Churchill led commandos in fighting on the Italian island of Sicily. Carrying his sword, his longbow and arrows, as well as his bagpipes, Churchill and his unit infiltrated one of the Axis-controlled towns and captured 42 prisoners. In 1944, Churchill and his commandos supported Allied actions in Yugoslavia. He led a desperate offensive against a German-occupied island where the majority of his unit were killed or wounded by mortar shells. Churchill himself was knocked unconscious and captured by Nazi soldiers. Lieutenant Colonel Churchill was flown by his captors to Berlin for interrogation and then moved to a concentration camp. After being held prisoner for about 4 months, Churchill and a British Royal Air Force officer crawled under barbed wire through an abandoned drain and began walking to the coast of the Baltic Sea to make an escape.
Despite their efforts, they were captured again before arriving at the coast. Churchill was later transferred to another camp in Austria where he continued to watch for another opportunity to escape. In April 1945, the chance came when the camp's lighting system failed. Churchill walked away from his work detail and disappeared into the darkness, heading for the Alps and the Italian border on foot. After traveling about 150 miles in 8 days, Churchill finally arrived near Verona, Italy, where he caught sight of a column of American troops.
Churchill returned to England with his freedom, but full of frustration that the war was almost over and he had missed much of it over the past year. As it was clear the war in Europe was coming to a close, Churchill was sent to Burma again, where battles were still being waged against Japanese forces occupying the colony. On his way to Southeast Asia, however, Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed by American forces, and the war came to an end there as well. After the war, Churchill was sent to Palestine in the spring of 1948, as the British mandate there was coming to an end. Leading a parachute regiment, Churchill assisted an Israeli medical convoy that came under attack by hundreds of Arabs, and he later aided in the evacuation of several Israeli doctors, students, and patients from a hospital. In his later life, Churchill taught at a warfare school in Australia. There he took up an interest in surfing and even designed his own surfboard. After he retired from the military in 1959, Churchill's eccentric nature persisted while working civilian jobs, sailing with his wife, and building radio-controlled ship models. Jack Churchill died in Surrey, England in 1996 at the age of 89, the only man known to have carried into battle and successfully used a longbow and broadsword during World War II.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button and be sure to subscribe to my channel for new videos. You can also check out another episode right over here. Thanks for watching.